So a digital nomad is a person that is location independent. And that means that is able to earn a living anywhere on earth.
You're about to enter the Archgyan podcast. India's first and very own architecture podcast, where you'll hear the insights, experiences, and journeys from India's leading architects. No matter what your skill level is, together we'll build on our knowledge and share architecture's greatest stories ever told. Now, here's your host, Manish Paul Simon.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Archgyan podcast. It's been a while since our last episode, so apologies for keeping you all waiting for so long. You know, I try my best to release an episode every week, but then something comes up and then you just postpone it to the next week, and then it becomes a month, then it becomes 2 months. So I've sort of prioritize things in life now, and hopefully from here on out I'm going to release an episode every week. Alright, with that said, I'm really excited to release this episode today because I have an awesome guest all the way from Israel, and she does something really awesome, which is, travel the world and still make money. And she is an architect too. She calls herself a digital nomad architect. This is Shelly Agam from Israel. I'm not going to give further introduction. Let's just get right to the episode and you'll find out what exactly a digital nomad is and how cool it is to be one. Shelly shares how she got into architecture, and then we slowly transition into living the digital nomad lifestyle.
Yes, as early as 12, I remember I was very interested in interior design, and then I realized why just focus on the interior when you can design the whole building, and really read a lot about it and seeked out other architects to kind of get the feel into the field. And I did go into university to study architecture in Technion in Israel.
Oh, nice. So could you give us your experience studying architecture in Israel?
Well, unfortunately, in Israel, this is a very difficult profession because we work as hard as everyone else does around the world, but we get paid very, very little.
This is the same in India as well. We get paid peanuts.
Well, I can imagine. Yes. So after 5 years to get a degree, and then we have 3 years to intern in different fields of architecture before we get the full certification. Before you get the full certification, you are still an architect and you can still plan, but only small and simple buildings and not like sky risers. And
so you can't really sign on official documents for those 3 years?
You can, but just for the simple buildings. So for a private residential like a villa, you can sign for it. Small additions, things like that. But then if you want to design anything and build 100 stories, then you need to finish the 3 years of internship and then take a very difficult test.
Okay.
Yeah, and only then are you certified to sign on anything.
And if you want to study architecture in Israel, do you have a test, or how do you get into architecture school in Israel?
Yes, so you have, normally it's about 50% a practical test that you do, which you kind of go and get this kind of assignment to plan, a kindergarten with a yard, and then you have like 2 or 3 hours to do that. That's 50% of the score, and then the other 50% is how well you did in your high school diploma and it's similar to the American SATs. It's kind of like a psychometric exam that you do. So that's 50%, and 50% is the practical test.
But this is after you complete your military education, right? You guys have compulsory military education and all that.
So we have, after high school, we have a compulsory army service for men and for women. For men, it's 3 years. For women, it's 2 years. It's awesome and it's terrible. Okay. It depends on how you look at it. It's a very militant kind of society. very survival oriented, and it's very complicated politically. So it doesn't matter what you believe, you have to go and serve in the army, which can be a bit conflicting. But for me, I actually did a really interesting army service, and I switched between different roles. And I started off as a tour guide for school children. This was my army job when I started out. So yeah, it kept me away from any political issues. I do really love the scenery and the nature in Israel, and I got to spend all my time in nature.
And you guys have something called a thesis during your architecture school, maybe in your final year or in the fourth year?
Yes. So alongside our final project, we should develop and submit a thesis for the final project. I did one about urban decay, since my project was dealing with the reuse of an old abandoned flour mill.
Right. So this was in Israel itself, right?
Yes, it was in Israel, near my hometown.
Okay. And could you also tell us about your experience working those 3 years? Did you work in Israel itself, or did you get to go to other countries as well?
You could do your internship out of state, but I did work in Israel after finishing my degree. So I started off in a small firm that mainly did high prestigious, high-end kind of villas, so small residentials, the kind of houses that show up in magazines, and luckily for me, the most I got out of this first job was that they were one of the first firms in Israel to work with Revit.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
So they actually sent me to learn this program before I started my internship with them. And that was the biggest contribution I got there, because I didn't stay there very long. I actually had not a great experience where the boss had me do his son's presentations for school for sixth grade. And I felt like I wasn't really learning that much there. So after that, I switched to a different firm, and I stayed there for about 2 years longer. And then we did mostly high-dense residentials.
Right. So you sort of implemented Revit in the new firm which you joined, or?
Yes. So I taught it there to the rest of the employees, and I was working with Revit in the firm. They were not working with this program before I signed on, but I'm sure this kind of transition is happening all around the world currently.
Absolutely, yeah.
Where the governmental projects are asking you to submit your design and to work with BIM software. So it's mandatory, and any firm that kind of wants these projects, the big government projects, has to be able to say, we work with BIM. And in Israel, basically, I would say about 90%, if you say BIM, it's Revit. So I did get into the field pretty early on. Let's say for Israel, it was early on. It was around 2013.
Okay.
And I was lucky enough to learn this program early, which helped me really get better jobs, better pay, and eventually helped me become a digital nomad because I am working with this lovely program, which I really, really like.
Right. All right. So let's get to the digital nomad side of things. A lot of us still don't know what the term digital nomad means. Especially a lot of architects, because they get stuck in one place. So could you explain to us what exactly is a digital nomad?
So a digital nomad is a person that is location independent, and that means that is able to earn a living anywhere on earth. While you are working on your computer, it doesn't really matter if you are in Tel Aviv or in Bangladesh, right? So you can work from anywhere. And then in your free time, instead of just going home, the same home every day, you can travel and do whatever you like, basically. Some digital nomads do still work in their home countries, but they work from home or from the beach, right? But a lot of digital nomads do use this opportunity to travel, stay in good weather, all year long.
How did you get into the digital nomad scene, and how long have you been doing this?
So I was working in the architecture firm, and I was really, really unhappy.
Right.
I felt like I was really taken advantage of. I was working really hard. I had really, really hard bosses. And I felt I wasn't earning enough to suffer through this. At least if you have the compensation for it, you can suffer through it.
Yeah.
But luckily I wasn't earning enough, so I wasn't willing to take it anymore, and I quit.
So you used to work from morning 9 to night, whatever time, right?
Yes. So very, very often I would start very early in the morning and finish very late if there was a competition or some big project due. Yes, we would work really long hours, and we didn't get overtime or anything like that, which is actually illegal, but that's the way it was. So I felt like I was working all the time. I had no free time. I was also single at the time, and I really, really wanted to meet someone, and I had no time and no money and just no energy to do anything else with my time to, develop any of my hobbies. So I quit my job without really knowing what the next step was, and I figured I would open my own firm, and I knew it would be hard to find clients and to start it off, but I didn't care. I was really at a breaking point. And in order to really just make sure can pay my rent, I started teaching Revit at this kind of design college in Tel Aviv, just to make sure I have some income while I'm trying to open my own firm.
Right.
So I was sitting at home. I was reading a lot, trying to figure out what I want to do next, how I'm going to make my life better. And I realized what I really, really wanted. And this is the first time in a while that I've actually asked myself what I really want in life. And I realized I really want to travel. I want to see the world. I want to keep working as an architect. I wish I can do this while traveling, but my number one goal was to travel. And honestly, with this whole really long time, like minimum of 8 years during architecture school and internship, but even before trying to get into architecture school, this was about a decade of my life, which I followed this one path. But once you're on the path and the more you invest in this path, the harder it is to stop and ask yourself, is this still what I want and what I want to continue doing in my life? So this was really a big epiphany for me that, okay, I love architecture. I do want to be involved in architecture, but the profession itself is probably not what I want and can't give me what I want in life. So then I kind of did some research, and I said, okay, well, you cannot possibly travel all the time. You have to work, you have to stay somewhere and sit in an office. And I started reading about it. And actually at that time, I started reading the book 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. Yes. So it's a bit out of date now, at least the second part of it, the technical tips and tricks on how to do this. But the first part of the book, which is more the philosophy behind this, really talked to me and really opened my eyes and changed my way of thinking about money and about spare time and about what work is. And through my research, I kind of found this global community of digital nomads. And I found that most of the digital nomads do come from high tech and are doing things that are already online, right? Programming, or even graphics and 3D visualizations maybe, but not actual architecture.
Yeah, in my search to find a digital nomad architect, I was lost, and then finally I found you. So hey, not many architects do this, right?
Yes, I have met some architects that travel, but in a bit of a different way. So they would travel to Brazil, let's say, and then they would stay in Brazil for a year and look for projects there. But that's, again, it's not really location independent because you have to stay put.
Yeah.
So in this time, I did manage to find some clients and start some projects little by little. And I did find that the smaller projects, for example, if someone wants to get the city to sign off on an addition to his house, this is something that you can totally do online and remotely, because they just want to add a room. They don't need the planning. They just need you to make it into a format that you can send to the city, and you don't have to go there physically because everything is online now. So those are the kind of projects that I still do sometimes, even though they're not super creative. They do help me make some money.
But at this point of time, you were still in Tel Aviv, right?
I was living in a small village about half an hour north of Tel Aviv, because at the same time, I was also really trying to cut back on my expenses. So if you want to work less, you need to spend less. And Tel Aviv is one of the most expensive cities in the world. So getting out of Tel Aviv was one of the first steps towards becoming financially independent.
And also the importance of having good internet, right?
Yes. So this is talking about the next stage in where to go once you get to the point that you are location independent.
Yeah.
I still do some architecture and I do some remote design work, but my main income now was actually opening my business Revit Pros, where I do make some passive income because I have video courses and digital products, but I still do tutoring one-on-one because I really like it, and it keeps me in touch with my clients. And so together I actually do many, many different things. I also give lectures about digital nomadism as an architect and how to create an online business, even though you come from an analog kind of field.
Yeah.
And then, once I reach this point where I feel, okay, I have my first course out and I can try and find a way to do it remotely, I had to test it. And by then I had met my partner, Oren, and we had an opportunity to go into an entrepreneurial program in Edinburgh, in Scotland.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, so it was a 6 months program, and we had flown there in August, got to travel a little bit there and in the Highlands. And we learned a lot from this program. We did have a lot of difficulties. I had thought that once I had my first online course, I can just start making money, but turns out you need to market it. And I had known nothing about marketing.
So this is where you were introduced to digital marketing and all that.
Yes, and just organic marketing and managing communities online and many other areas that I've never dealt with before. And I did have to kind of swallow my pride and go and work as a salesperson in the mall to make rent, while my partner was trying to work on his business and I tried to work on mine. But it was a great opportunity to learn and really realize what it's going to take. And after about 5 months there, we went back to Israel, and I cannot say we were already there and successful, but we said we cannot go back after experiencing this kind of freedom. So we sold everything we owned and we moved out of the house we were living in, and decided we're just going to go for it. And a lot of it was that Israel is really, really expensive to live in, and anywhere else it would be much easier because you have a lot of less stress to make so much money to live just for the everyday. Oh, excuse me 1 second.
Yeah, no problem.
We're staying in an Airbnb apartment now.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
And
so you use mostly Airbnbs when you travel, or?
No, so it really depends where. Here in Turkey, we only had 1 month total. So we spent the last 2 weeks camping, traveling around Turkey. So really just sleeping in a tent for
nice.
2 weeks. And just yesterday, we arrived here yesterday evening in the Airbnb, and we have only 10 days here. And then we're moving to Canary Islands for the winter time. So we like to stay warm. Yeah.
So you hardly go home, is it?
So we go to visit, I would say, roughly once a year. This year we decided not to go after our last visit. Was really expensive, really stressful. We prefer to travel, and our friends and family come visit us where we are, which I think everyone enjoys.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's a better opportunity. But for your question, do we use Airbnb? So normally we try and rent by month. Because it's much cheaper, and you do get a more of a homey feeling, because when you move very often, you don't like to feel like you're living in a hotel. So we do travel with little bits and pieces and pictures that we put up, and try and make the place feel like home. And we don't move very fast. We try and spend a few months in each place, really to get the feel of it and to really get to know the culture, but also, again, to cut down on the costs, because our highest cost are the flights. But we do try and move with the seasons and try and stay warm. So now we spent the last summer in the mountains in Bulgaria, in a little ski town called Bansko.
Oh, nice.
And once it started getting colder, we started moving south. So we're doing 1 month in Turkey, and then we're going into the Canary Islands. We do have a lot of limitations because we have an Israeli passport. So the Middle East and a lot of the Arab Emirates and a lot of Muslim countries like Indonesia even, we cannot go. But also for Europe, it's a problem because we cannot stay longer than 90 days consecutively in the Schengen area, which is most of Western Europe. So a lot of factors come into play with deciding where to go, but also, like you mentioned before, the internet speed. And we really learned that, well, we got used to really high speeds. In Israel has very good internet, very cheap internet. And we got used to minimum of 50 mega or 100 mega.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we traveled to the Philippines, and we learned that even 5 mega per second is good. We can work with 5, but yeah. So we had to leave Philippines in the end because the internet was so terrible and so expensive.
But Turkey seems to be pretty good, right? No lag so far.
Yeah, Turkey is really good. It's really, really developed. I was actually a bit surprised. I didn't know much about Turkey before coming here, and all the public transport and the internet, the phone coverage, even when we were in the mountains or deep in the forest, we always had reception and good internet. It was really surprising, yeah.
From a more philosophical standpoint, do you feel like this is the future of work, maybe even for architects too, like location independent and being a digital nomad?
Definitely, 100%. This is the way it's going to be for everyone in the future. A lot of big companies already allow their employees to work remotely.
Yeah.
They find that their costs go down, the employees are more efficient, happier. Even, for a mother to stay home with her children, or a father to stay home with a sick baby instead of coming into the office. It really, really helps the employees, even in firms to feel like they are trusted, and they are managing their own time better. So I think financially it's good for everyone. And once you get this freedom, then you can decide where to work from. And it only makes sense for people to earn money in higher paying jobs and then go live in less expensive places.
But do you feel as an architect, we could pull that off as well? Maybe since Revit is going into something called synchronization, where you can just pretty much sit in one place and work on the same project, right?
Well, to be honest, I look at it in two ways. The first one is that my main problem right now in working as an architect is the client. The client wants you to physically be there, to hold their hands, and, to speak with them face to face. Video calls is not enough. But this is something that I feel like will change in the future, and people will adapt and will be more accepting of working remotely. This is the one side of it. On the other hand, there is something to be said for going physically into where the building is going to be, looking at the area, feeling it, actually standing there. That changes the way you think about the design. Something that is lacking when, doesn't matter how many videos and, conferences we do, it's not the same thing as actually being there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is a small price to pay, and the more technology evolves, the better it is, and the easier it would be to communicate and to see and feel the place. So really, I think this is where the future is going. And I must say, I do still have clients that are open to this experience, that actually take me on a video call to the, flooring shop, and we choose the pattern together. And
oh, nice. Okay.
I work, and even during the build, I call the contractor by video call and do the inspection by video call. So this is things that I still do and still manage. But again, my main problem is to find clients that are willing to go with it. And I did have some opportunities while traveling to do some local projects.
I was going to ask you this question, whether you got to do projects locally in other countries as architect.
So it was mostly interior design and less architecture. But for example, I was living in the summer for about 4 months in Budapest in Hungary. And while we were looking for an apartment, we found one apartment that the landlord had just bought, and it was completely empty. And I had offered him that we would live there and I would design and furnish it. And actually, my partner and I did the work ourselves.
Oh, nice.
So the apartment was painted and we got the gas and electricity and everything put in. But we did go and buy all the furniture and set it up ourselves. You can actually see this apartment on my website. So this apartment is an Airbnb apartment now that's being let out, and it's very colorful and really stands out as something that was designed by an architect and not, your standard Airbnb apartment, which I really like. And we got to live there inside our design, so it was really fun.
And also, in a way, the cultures start to exchange, right? As an architect from Israel and going and practicing in Hungary, that's pretty cool, right?
Yes, it's lovely. And I've actually been thinking about this a lot since we've got here to Turkey, because the design style obviously is very different from Western Europe than here in Istanbul, for example. And of course, the Muslim culture that affects it, and all these little details. And I would really, really love to put some of these things into my next project. I'm already seeing so many examples, and I know it's going to affect my style because every place I see and all these travels, of course, they stay with me in a way, and they do kind of mesh together into the design process that will come out later.
All right. And what advice would you give to someone who wants to get into this space of, traveling and being location independent and being a digital nomad if he's from the design field?
So, firstly, I would say my biggest hurdle was to kind of let go of being an architect. Like I said, I still do architecture, but I felt like really insisting on being only an architect kind of made me stay in one place. So I feel like you really need to be more flexible and open up the fields in which you can earn money from. And definitely try and cut down on your spending to save some money, to be so it can be easier for you to move around, because we do kind of collect a lot of things, and it makes it harder to pick up and leave. And I feel like, honestly, when you learn architecture, you learn such a big, diverse field of subjects. So you know a little bit of graphic design and a little bit of interior design and a little bit of history and a little bit of presentation. So you gather all these skills because it's such a big field that you can find your own little niche to work in, and you just need to be a bit more flexible and open-minded, and really do the research, because there are so many people doing so many amazing, diverse things that I really truly believe that if it's your goal, anybody can achieve this.
Awesome. And also, are you trying other avenues in being digital nomad, like maybe drop shipping or content writing or the various other things people do, right?
Yes. So I don't do drop shipping. I don't really believe in it. I really like to create new things. I like to teach. I don't really like to buy something and then sell it. I find this is not contributing something into the world. Yeah. But I know a lot of people that have used this as a stepping stone, and they've created their business to create their own income and create actually a passive income from this, so they can free up their time and they're doing other things with their time. That's great also. Actually, my partner does online marketing and advertisement.
Oh, awesome.
So he has that kind of avenue, and this is much more common for digital nomads to do. And for content writing, I do create a lot of content as part of my firm for Revit teaching, which is Revit Pros. I do tips, and I have a blog, and I run a community on Facebook which helps people with their Revit problems. So I do content in that way, and I also have a digital nomadism blog about my travels, and especially about our travels with our little dog, which is also a challenge of its own, but very,
That's
very
awesome. You travel with
rewarding.
your dog as well?
Yes, she's already 11 years old, and I've had her since she is 1 year old, and we cannot part. So yeah, she's with us right now in the Airbnb, making a mess. But yeah, we really...
Is it difficult to travel to a different country with a dog?
Well, actually, we planned on coming to India, to the south of India for the winter time, to start at Goa and then work our way up north as the winter passes. And it turns out that you cannot import a pet into India if you are not a resident or have a citizenship.
Oh, right. Okay.
So the whole of India and Sri Lanka are off the map for us while we have our little Blonda.
Okay.
So this is one example of the way it can be difficult because we cannot just go anywhere we like. Some countries have very strict rules about importing pets. Other than that, we did travel with her to Philippines, Vietnam, Germany, Bulgaria, now Turkey. So we have gained a lot of experience with that. And we are very fortunate that she is very small. So we can actually take her in the cabin with us.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so that's very...
Which breed is it? Is it a pug?
No, it's she's a terrier mix. She's not a pure breed.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, on my blog, on my Digital Nomad blog, I write about the logistics of traveling with a dog and all the paperwork that you need to do. And it seems really overwhelming and complicated at first, but once you get the hang of it, it's just to get a health certificate from each country before you leave to the next country. And we have all of the tests already made. So it's pretty easy. And we've never had a problem, even when we did miss a date and didn't have the right paperwork. We find that people were just really helpful and they just let us take her. Even one time there was one flight that we had to send her in cargo because they did not allow pets on board. And then at the last minute, when the doors of the plane were already closed, the pilot made an announcement for us to come, and they brought her onto
that's
the
an
plane.
awesome story.
It was lovely. Really, people are really lovely, and she's really a quiet dog, and she doesn't do she doesn't make any fuss, and so yeah.
Cool. All right,
it's easy.
So we'll get to the quickfire round where I ask you a series of brief questions, and you could give us brief answers as well.
Oh, okay.
Okay, how many countries have you visited so far?
23.
Oh, wow. Okay. Who's your favorite architect?
Zaha Hadid.
Zaha Hadid, yeah, I love her too. Which one book has inspired you the most?
I would go back to 4-Hour Work Week.
The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And what future plans do you have?
I want to travel Africa. This is my main plan for now.
All right. Thanks, Shelly. I think that was a great conversation. I personally learned a ton, and I'm also trying to become sort of a digital nomad step by step. I think it takes time for a lot of us, especially if you're an architect. So thanks, Shelly, once again. Hope to have you in our podcast in the future. And do you have any last words or anything that you would like to share?
I would just like to say that if it is your dream to combine traveling and still do architecture, I really believe it's possible. And you don't have to be a digital nomad full time. A lot of people do it for a few months out of the year. And I believe you can do it if you really want.
Great, awesome. So we'll share all the links and the tidbits and the great information that Shelly shared today on our website, which is archgyan.com. All right, Shelly, and also could you let our listeners know on how we could follow you and, on your journey as a digital nomad?
Sure. So if you want to really see the day-by-day travels, you're welcome to follow me on Instagram. I'm at Digital Nomad Arch, like
that's
architect.
ARCH?
Just
okay.
Yes. So that's my day-to-day. I also have a website where I put up my blog, and you can see examples of my work at www.agamdna.com. Agam is like my last name, AGAM, and DNA is Digital Nomad Architect.
You've been listening to the Archgyan podcast. We're still building the community. Please share this knowledge with someone you know who could benefit. Just send them to archgyan.com, where you'll find our free newsletter and for more podcast episodes. Search for the show on any major podcasting platform. Don't forget to subscribe where you're listening right now. And if you liked it, leave a rating or review.
Hey guys, I hope you liked this episode and learned a ton from it. If you like the Archgyan podcast and would like to support the show, please head to archgyan.com/sketchup. We made a small course for y'all so that you can learn and get better at SketchUp and V-Ray rendering. Archgyan is all about providing value, and this is our way of giving back to you guys. Instead of, just doing donations, you could probably buy our course and learn something and also support the show. So thanks guys for tuning in. We'll be having our next episode released soon on Monday. I wish you guys a happy weekday, and if you're listening on a weekend, happy weekend. Thanks guys. This is your host Manish Paul Simon signing off. Ciao.